Hello BookTube. For this Tag Tuesday, I'm going to be doing the O tag, one of the continuing entries in the alphabet tag series created by Jim of Jim's Books, Reading, and Stuff. Let's get started because there are a lot of very interesting prompts and questions in this tag. O is for 1, 2, 4. 1, 2, or 124. This is an address in the novel Beloved by Toni Morrison. And the question is there an address in your reading that stands out? The only one that is specific that I can remember is 221B Baker Street, the address of Sherlock Holmes. I can't think of any other novel or work of fiction that had an exact address. I mean, like Hercule Poirot lived in Whitehaven Mansions. I don't think the exact address of Miss Marple in St. Mary Mead is ever given, although it is rather close to the vicarage. And as tiny as it is, it probably has a house name or something. But other than that, I can't think of any addresses that are specific in my reading, particularly with fiction, that I can recall off the top of my head. And in fantasy, an exact address is a little bit too detailed for most fantasy writers, unfortunately. Next prompt. O is for Once Upon a Time. What is your favorite fairy tale? I'm really not all that interested in fairy tales. I mean, even as a kid, I really didn't gravitate to fairy tales or folk tales or nursery rhymes or anything like that. I mean, I guess maybe The Three Little Pigs. There's a book by John, I'm going to butcher his last name, so I'll leave a link, I'll remember to put it in the show notes. It's The True Story of the Three Little Pigs. I did really enjoy that book when I was a kid. But I can't think of anything else off the top of my head, unfortunately. O is for Observer's Books. Do you have any? No. Until this Jim's video, I've never even heard of them. O is for Olga, Tokarczuk, and Orhan Pamuk. Have you read either of these Nobel Prize-Winning authors? I've never read Olga Tokarczuk. I've been meaning to. I have one of her books, I think, in a wish list somewhere. I'm thinking it's on Amazon and maybe somewhere else. And I've been meaning to pick it up, but I've been kind of focusing on other things. That could have actually been one of the books I put in for the bucket list. And then as for Orhan Pamuk, I bailed on one of his books. I don't recall what it is at the moment, but I have been wanting to have another go with Orhan Pamuk as well. I'm not entirely happy with that bail, even though it's been nearly 15 years at least. Because it was around the time he won the Nobel Prize for Literature. So next prompt is, O is for Old Curiosity Shop. What is your least favorite Dickens novel? Now, I think I've read 3. And of the 3 I've read, A Tale of Two Cities is the worst, or my least favorite. I'm not terribly fond of that novel. O is for Oldest. What is the oldest book in your collection? It is an omnibus edition, or of the works of H. Rider Haggard, which includes She, King Solomon's Mines, Ellen Quatermain, and Cleopatra. I think it's the 4th book in the book. and it's from the 1920s, so it's about 100 years old. O is for Oxford. What was the last book you read set at a prestigious university? I think, even though this is a Bell, I think These Violent Delights is set in part at the University of Pittsburgh, or maybe Carnegie Mellon, but I'm thinking it's the University of Pittsburgh. And I would say it's a prestigious university. But also parts of Alamo House by Sarah Bird is set on the campus of the University of Texas, Austin, which is also a prestigious university. So I'll go with them, even though I did bail on both. Won several times. O is for Ovid. Have you read Ovid's Metamorphoses? I have. I read it for a Greek mythology class in 2004, 2005, and it's not my favorite. I mean, they're good. It was an enjoyable experience, but I'm not really fond of Ovid's interpretation or his sort of reconstruction of the Greek myths. O is for original. Have you created any original tags? Yes, I have. I've so far created 2 original tags. The Star Trek tag, it might have been the Star Trek book tag, where I asked a series of questions surrounding the extant Star Trek series. So I think it was like Star Trek, the next. I think the original series was something about like a book that informed your career choice or a career you would have liked to have had, and then the Next Generation would have been a more recent book about that. Enterprise would have been a book further back in time than the first one. DS9 was, I think, one that had a sense a community or a place, and then Voyager was about a voyage, and then Discovery was controversial, and Picard was one that really work that has its influences on its sleeve. Because, Star Trek Picard, there's a lot of Dune influences, some Tolkien influences, so on and so forth. And then I also created the Miss Marple book tag, which asks a series of questions related to the 12 novels of Agatha Christie wrote starring Miss Marple. So there are a few extra prompts, so let's check some of these out. O is for opening lines. Do you have any favorite opening lines? No, I don't. O is for Obama. Have you read Becoming or A Promised Land? No, I haven't. I haven't read any of Obama's books yet. I might have had I continued on with the BookTube Prize this year, but I've kind of dropped out after the second round. But I'm kind of wanting to read some of Obama's books at some point. O is for offensive. Does profanity bother you when you read it? No, I don't. It really doesn't bother me at all. O is for Oprah. Have you read or started a book because of a celebrity endorsement? No. O is for Oregon, Ohio, and Oklahoma. Have you read any books set in any of these states? I want to say At Home at the End of the World by Michael Cunningham is set at first in Ohio before moving to New York. And A Home at the End of the World is about a young man who kind of falls in love with this other young man who's sort of adopted into the family, and then the kind of sort of adopted young man kind of becomes a chef, while the other one who first moves to New York becomes, I think, a journalist or a writer of some sort, who forms a friendship with this woman who, when the sort of childhood friend comes to New York, he ends up having a relationship with the friend, and she gets pregnant, and they sort of have this kind of a family dynamic that ends up falling apart because of the AIDS crisis. It's been forever since I've read it, and I just recently re-added it to my collection. I've really been meaning to get to it again. Oklahoma, I don't think I've read anything set in Oklahoma. I mean, I know I've wanted to read like August Osage County, but I think I've only seen parts of the movie and I've never read the play itself. But other than that, I can't think of anything I've read set in Oklahoma. And Oregon, I don't think I've read anything set in Oregon, which is a shame because Oregon is one of my favorite states. And I need to look into that. Okay, so next prompt. O is for Ontario. Have you read a book set in this Canadian province? Yes. A number of Margaret Atwood's more realistic fiction is set in Ontario. I've read The Robber Bride, which is set in Toronto. Cat's Eye, which is set mostly in Toronto. I've read, I think, some of her short fiction, and Wilderness Tips is set in Ontario. I think We So Seldom Look on Love by Barbara Gowdy is set in Ontario. And I think, is it Mindhunter? I think there's a book by Timothy Finley that I don't think I ever actually fully read. I think I bailed on it. But I think it's set in a mental institution in Toronto. O is for own. Feel free to add your own prompt. So, I've been thinking about this. I watched earlier today Shandi Stainfest's video about online bookseller mistakes. And that got to me thinking, since there's an ability to create one's own prompt for this tag, and since online it begins with O, well, what about, have you had any problems with online booksellers if you shop online? And I do shop online, and I've had a few issues. So far 3, it could be 4 issues. So as far as quality is concerned, I'm not as precious with that, given that most of the books I buy online, particularly through Alibris, are incredibly cheap, that I'm not really put out of the quality isn't all that good. If I would consider it more fair condition than good condition, or if the books are ex-library, because that's a bit fun, figuring out what the library is and all of that. But what really annoys me is when the order is screwed up in some way, and that's happened to me so far 3 times. Might possibly be a 4th one, but I'll wait a few days or maybe a week or 2 before I look into it. But I ordered a few years ago a copy of one of the Agatha Christie omnibuses from Better World Books when they were selling on Alibris. And instead of getting the omnibus, I ended up with one of the mass markets, that one of the books was in the anthology, but it was just that one mass market. So they refunded the money, and didn't ask for the book back because that would be a bit, like, the expense would be a bit silly to do. So I've kept the mass market too. I've been meaning to get rid of it, but I haven't gotten around to it. And I picked up the anthology that I wanted, or omnibus that I wanted, from, I want to say it's Clean Earth Books, but I don't think they're selling with the Libris anymore either. And then the second issue I had, which was similar to the first, was from Discover Books that happened a few weeks ago, about a month or two ago. I ordered Red Hourglass by Gordon Grice and Fullmetal Alchemist Volume 2 by Hiromu Arakawa. And instead of either of those two books, I ended up getting a Spanish beginner course book, which is certainly not what I ordered. So I inquired whether or not I should send it back, and if there was any way I could get my order, and they said no, just keep it and we'll refund you the money, although they only really refunded me for Fullmetal Alchemist Volume 2. But I mean, the Gordon Grice book, it was like $1.45 plus $3.99 or $2.99 shipping and handling, so yeah, I'll eat it. And I'll keep the Spanish course book on the off chance that I might want to sort of refresh my Spanish language skills, which have atrophied, or give it to my brother if he's still homeschooling the 4 children of the apocalypse and teach them a foreign language. And then another issue I had was I bought 3 volumes of Tsubasa Reservoir Chronicle from Midtown Bookseller, and only got 2 of the books in my order. And when I emailed them about it, they said the missing book had already been sold, and they forgot to sort of go in and refund the money before it shipped. So I'm like, okay. And I think I've just recently either picked up the one that I ordered or from another seller, or just ordered it. And then the fourth possible, and also with Midtown, the getting the books was a bit of a pain because the regional postal service store or distribution center in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania has a few issues. It takes a while to get books out, or anything probably. But I just ordered with them again, so we'll see how long it takes. And then the possibly fourth one is I ordered some books from Half Price Books, and 2 of the books have come in, but 3 of the books in the order haven't. So I'm going to give it a few weeks to see what's up, and if that, or a week or 2, and then if I don't get them or nothing else happens, I'm going to look into it and see what's up. So anyway, if you have any issues with online booksellers, consider this a opportune moment to rant about it or talk about it. And finally, the last of the alternate questions. O is for Orwell. What have you read by George Orwell? I've read Animal Farm when I was, I think, about 12 or 13, and I remember quite liking it. Except for the ending, and of course the whole pigs becoming little better than humans. I've also read 1984, which I didn't particularly care for, but that's because I have since strongly not liked or dystopic fiction. And I've also read On the English Language, and I think a few other of his essays, because I took a style class, and George Orwell was one of the authors in the Style Reader, because he is a fantastic nonfiction prose stylist. So yeah, but that's all I've read from Orwell. Probably should look into getting more of his work, except for his nonfiction more so than his fiction because I didn't really like 1984, and I don't know if I really want to revisit Animal Farm. But anyway, that was the O tag. If you would like to do this tag, consider yourselves tagged, and I will see you tomorrow with hopefully another tag video, because there are quite a few tag videos I've seen this week that I would like to do. So until then, BookTube, thank you, have a great afternoon, and stay safe.